Hello, and welcome to another exciting edition of Victory Never Sleeps. And this is our second edition of Adulting with Alan, where our law speaker joins us and helps drop some practical wisdom to our folk who find ourselves sometimes in various need of said. Um, to start off with, I would like to just say I just got home from a fantastic Charming of the Plow celebration at Njordshof. It was a wonderful weekend. Our All of our folk, our leadership, as well as our volunteers at Njordshof, did an amazing job of hosting a fantastic event, of making a beautiful and sacred space to worship Njorder in, and to provide a really amazing weekend for all of us. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for all that you did, and congratulations on an amazing event. You too could be at an amazing AFA event in just 1 month's time. We have Ostara at Thorshof coming up March the 21st through the 23rd. I will be there. I look forward to seeing all of you there. Anyone listening to this, if you're interested and you'd like to attend, please contact any of our folk builders. They would love to get you all set up. Yeah, look forward to meeting you there. And I invite you guys to come out. It's a fantastic event in a really, really cool spot in a Hof that is, I don't know, particularly close to me. That was the first of our Hofs that we were able to make happen under my leadership as Ulterior Gothi. So it's real special to me and something that, I don't know, happened at a real pivotal time for me. So I thought I always got a real special connection to the place. You will experience some fantastic people with truly amazing hospitality. Some of our very best people are in that area. The building itself has a lot of history to it and is beautiful. And the mural, and this was the first mural that Witten Svan painted of one of the Aesir in their Hofs, and it is powerful in a way my words don't do justice to. When you see it, when you walk in and you see Asatru in his Hof, the mural dominates the space, and you can really feel his presence in the room. So I invite you all to come out and experience that. I look forward to seeing you there. Other stuff. I appreciate everybody who has guest hosted for me in the last little bit through travel, and before that, battling the illness that so many of us have dealt with at the beginning part of this year. I have seen you guys far less than I am accustomed and than I would like to. So it's nice to be back, and I appreciate Gothi Trent, who filled in for me a couple of times there. So this is, as I mentioned, the second of the Adulting with Alan episodes. And this week, our law speaker wanted to focus on diet and exercise. So, Alan, looks really cool where your head is because you got the wings on it.
No, I tried to adjust so it doesn't look like I'm trying to take on just a helmet.
But no, you just own it. It's cool. Swan often wreaths his head in the oak leaves with where he sits, so it's all good.
Right. And the raven's on my shoulder there. See, so it's all.
Oh, I see it there. So either way you go, you got something ethereal going on.
That's my that's my goal. Okay,
floor is yours.
Thanks, sir. First, I'll add my gratitude and praise for all the folks there at Njordshof that made us look so good. Pam rocking the kitchen, Alex, Ander rocking everything else, and everybody just made everything happen. It certainly made it really easy for those of us who conducted bloat to be able to just focus on what we were doing. I think we did each other proud, and I think we did well manifesting the presence of the gods. Both of us. Um, so thank you, Allsherry Gothi, for your attendance and, um, as always, bringing it all for the folk. So a couple of things, just by way of introduction. First of all, I guess broadly saying, some may ask, and valid question, what these sorts of discussions have to do with any kind of religion. And to me, part of the function of a religious body, which we are, is to improve the lives of our folk. That's why I try to talk about financial stuff and improving our people's financial health. That's why I think diet and exercise is a very important topic for all of us, one that I'm starting to pay closer and closer attention to as I near my 50s. The it's and there's a lot of important research that's been done, and some of which I'm going to brush on. Talking about a couple of YouTube channels I've been following lately. Um, but what I want to start with is just kind of the broad overview, the way that I see it, and that's not the only way I see it. And disclaimer: I am not a medical doctor. I am not a nutritionist. I'm just a guy who has too much idle time and watches a lot of YouTube videos on diet and nutrition. So, um, the the first broad picture aspect of it comes to me just in the idea that we all should be eating more whole foods. And by that, I mean, I guess the footnote to that is corporations are not your friend. Um, corporations are not your friends. Corporation, all corporations are trying to do is sell you corporate food, which has been processed into oblivion, the all the nutrients rearranged in a way that is largely unhealthy so that it shoots through your digestive tract, shoots out into your system incompletely digested. It's not food in any meaningful sense, it's chemical soup. So study after study that is not funded by the food corporations uh, demonstrates that again and again, that food that comes, the more it's processed, the worse it is for you. In fact, I recently read, sorry, I saw it on YouTube, that there is as much carcinogenic potential in a order of French fries as there is in a carton of cigarettes. And what the underlying science behind that is more complicated than I really completely understand. But basically, what happened is they started frying foods in vegetable oil. Vegetable oil does not hold up to heat very well. They fry in very high heat. It rearranges the molecules in the oil and makes it into stuff that is really bad for you. And your cells, the lining of your cells, are made up of these oils. So when you digest an order of French fries or chicken McNuggets, the oils in those substances stay in your body for, again, this is the guy that I was watching, but he was citing the science that those oils stay in your body for 2 years. So you've got stuff that should be something that's really nice and clean, like a cholesterol molecule from an egg yolk, or something from the nut kernel of a pecan, or some yummy bacon grease that should be making up the parts of those cells, but instead it's made up of something that is not as healthy, it's not as stable, and it is more likely to go wrong in your body. And when things go wrong in your body, that is what's we call disease. Certainly, that's one of the reasons that many doctors speculate that why cancer has become so prevalent, because we have all these nasty non-food substances that we take into our body quite frequently, and they get in there, and it's like uh, I don't know, it's like putting diesel fuel in your in your gasoline motor. It shouldn't be in there. And so, and when it gets in there, bad things happen. Um, the other thing that certainly with my diet, um, I will say, as we all know, that good food costs more. I mean, the crap that they want to sell you, um, crackers and potato chips, um, are relatively inexpensive, but to get good food, vegetables, organic meat, all that sort of stuff is a lot more expensive. But if you eat less, you can buy better food and you end up with the same price point overall, and eat better. So that's the way, and that's a long time ago when I drank more beer. That's what I decided to do. That I was going to, I used to drink. I don't even remember what it was, Miller or whatever. But then when I found good beer, which at the time was Beck's or something exotic like that, yeah, that's, I remember. Okay, I'll tell you, when the drinking age was 18, when I was 18. So that tells you how long ago that was. But then once I found good beer, I just said, I'm going to drink less and I'm going to drink better beer. So we can do the same thing with food. You can eat better food, just eat less, and that's better for you anyway. Um, your body is made to digest whole food, like whole milk, um, and vegetables or a piece of fruit or something like that, not as uh, Rachel so rightly reminds us, not energy drinks, which are just a chemical slurry that, it's basically like mainlining sugar and, these other things that are basically hormonal substances or pre-hormones that get into your bloodstream and dink around with your metabolism in a way that, are really bad for you. You should, we evolved for 300,000 years or 30,000 years, whatever number you want to use, having to, um, digest food and get the nutrient out of, a kernel of, um, wheat or out of out of a kernel of barley. If you want to use something that looks more like beer, or even honey digests very differently from table sugar. So, um, the best thing you can do is eat whole food, fresh food prepared at home. Even if you use white flour, if you use whole flour, that's cooked there at home with real butter. God, please don't use margarine or any of that stuff. But if you use all of that, those things, again, it's a little more expensive. But if you cook at home, it's a lot less expensive than rolling through the drive-through like I see all my clients doing. So that too is a big part of it. Um, Years ago, I watched a program about why small animals, proportional to their species, tend to live longer. Like smaller dogs tend to live longer than bigger dogs. And what scientists said that the conclusion seems to be is that it looks at just total, throughput, like your liver, your intestines, are in your entire lifetime are will only produce so much digestive enzyme. It will only produce so much, ability to, uh, keep yourself going. Your heart will only beat so many times. So the more food that you eat, like a big dog has to eat a lot more food to maintain all that muscle mass. So they tend to have shorter lives than the little lap dogs that, because they eat less overall, um, their liver just lasts longer. It's like anything else. The more you use something, the quicker you wear it out. Um, I can certainly say that this is not the easiest fight for me. I like to say I'm still trying to lose my baby weight, even though my youngest son is 24 years old now. He'll be 24 next month. So, you know, I realize it's a struggle, and Part of it is, again, it's evolutionary. We evolved over a long time of food scarcity. Um, I've been listening to books about English history, and it's pretty amazing how often there were widespread famines in a whole nation where substantial percentages, 5, 10, 15% of the population died because there wasn't enough food. That's not the era that we live in today. Now that we've invented now that we've had the green revolution and we're strip mining the soils, we are in a very different place as regards to food. That doesn't mean it's healthy. And again, the corporations are designed to sell us that food. Thank you. See, here comes some food in the door, but it's good food. It's healthy food. Um, and they don't care about your health. They care about your money. So go to the farmer's market, buy some real fruit and vegetables. Find a guy who has forest raised pork and have some real pork chops and some real apples and that sort of stuff. Eat in season. There are hundreds and hundreds of recommendations along that line. Secondly, as far as exercise, I'll share you go. I know you love the gym. I love in Kung Fu. It's not called the dojo. It's called the Kwoon, but it's the same thing. It's the workout temple. And I've been doing Kung Fu. Sorry,
Alan, can I interject? And I'd
of
like
course.
to say a few. I don't know. I'd like to touch on a few diet things before we move on to exercise because they work together. But while we're still fresh, and it's one of our questions that you alluded to. So, as you will note, a lot of people. Okay, something that I want to say is a preamble. As I say a lot, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Make more good choices tomorrow than you are today, and that's good. That's a step in the right direction. It's easy when people talk about diet or exercise. People get very passionate about it, and people get very entrenched ideas about the one right way to do everything. People who are doing good, who are in good shape and living good lives and are healthy, that are arguing over the best way to get there, that's a good problem to have. But it's intimidating to people that don't know where to start to think that it's all, you're either doing it this one right way or you're doing it all wrong. See, one of the secrets is most anything works if you do it consistently and you move towards it, especially if you are currently in a state of obesity, or if you are, unhealthily scrawny, or whatever your situation you find yourself in. Picking any of a variety of really good options is going to help you get there. One of our questions, again, Rachel asks, question for Alan: how do we convince our fellow folk of the evils of energy drinks? Well, you got to start here because I don't believe there are evils of energy drinks. But for an example, if you're going to drink,
And yet it's true.
Drinks, as Alan mentioned earlier, it's like mainlining sugar, except for it's not if it doesn't have the sugar in it. So I think it is a pretty sound thing to say, if you're eating full sugar energy drinks, if you eat not full sugar energy drinks, that's a step in the right direction. If you're drinking full sugar sodas, drink diet sodas. May not taste quite the same. Alan shakes his head, but the calories don't lie on it. And here's the other thing too. There's so many things to factor in. And yes, diet soda is better than regular soda. That's just true. The other thing is how you're trying to get natural, or whether you're trying to deal with your calories in versus calories out. Either of those things is better than if you don't care about either of them and you're stuck in a spot where you're struggling. There are a lot of options, and there's some tools that I'd like to present to you guys a little bit later so you can help monitor for a variety of the things depending upon what you're trying to do or what diet you're trying to follow. But I do say this, most anything within reason is a lot better than remaining stuck in a state where you are not happy with your health or you are not happy with your fitness. These are all things that you have a variety of paths to get better at. Don't let people's strong opinions on them confuse you, either mine or Alan's or anyone else's, but do something. And we're here to present you with our best ideas from both of our viewpoints on how best to do that. But as long as you're doing something, it's a lot better than doing nothing.
Yeah, unquestionably. Um, and as with a lot of other things, just mindfulness about your diet, just turning on that awareness will start to steer you in the right direction. And you certainly don't want to get disappointed, and like think, well, I have to go full carnivore. And then, so the first time you have a bag of chips, you think, you've ruined yourself and now you can just go back to being, you know, because it's not on or off. It's, the goal is to be a little better every day. You're absolutely right.
Another thing I wanted to add on that, just this is something that's been important to me. And here's the thing. A lot of the time you get some people that purity spiral because they get obsessed about things. You also have people that develop these really entrenched views on it because they've spent a lot of years paying attention to it and being interested in it and reading up on it. And sometimes folks come to different conclusions, but I think one of the conclusions everybody notes, the biggest problem with any diet thing is consistency. People will shoot for something very askew from what their norm is. Then they will find out they can't be perfect. They'll get discouraged. And then oftentimes they'll like, fine, well, it's not worth it anyway. They will binge eat
I'll just
themselves
eat all
back
these
worse.
Cheetos,
Yeah,
right?
back worse than they started. And that's something to consider. Whatever you do, and this is another thing that's really hard, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in the exercise portion as well, but and again, it depends. If you're eating for health and you have a really specific health condition, and I think this is just a responsible thing to say anyway, we're not doctors. If you have a diabetic problem or a particular cardiovascular problem or something, you need a really specialized medical thing on it, by all means, consult them and get that figured out. And that's kind of outside of the realm of what we're talking about in general. Um, but barring that, if you're eating for a specific health result, it may be a little bit different. I know a lot of our folk struggle with obesity. If the problem is that you're obese, keep in mind that most people didn't, you didn't get obese over a couple of months of bad choices. Most of the time when we find ourselves obese, and I've been there, it's due to years, if not decades, of poor choices. And you can accelerate your progress, but it's just not realistic to think that you're going to repair 20 years of poor choices in 20 days of good choices. Don't let that discourage you. I'm also going to talk a little bit later about some tools to kind of check your progress in a way that maybe can give you some confidence that something's working even if it's not working as fast as you want. And that's the other secret. Nothing that we're going to suggest is going to work as fast as you want. It's never going to work as fast. If you find something that does, you let me know. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out here, that make the effort and the consistency. All of these things, it is all about the long game and consistency in building habits. Zero of it is easy, but finding something that can be done consistently, and when you fall down, getting back up and going back at it is the key to so many things in life, but very specifically to this. And then I'll pipe down.
That's all absolutely well taken. And I tend to launch on it because I've been trying to overcome my own obstacles in that arena. The um, the diet thing has come hard to me, both because I work a desk job, and so it's always easy just to have, some delicious mixed nuts in there in the drawer, which I have now excised from being within reach, so I'm not snacking all day. Um, the, um, and certainly there are several tools that work, that can work to help you lose weight. Everything from just simple calorie reduction, eat the same meals that you've always eaten, just slightly smaller for everything. Get a little more exercise, and you'll begin to see improvement over a period of time. Um, Uh, one thing that has become popular, certainly the carnivore diet is a big thing. I tried it for a while. It worked. I did lose some weight on it. I actually felt better after after I pushed through the initial ketosis phase. Um, and it's odd to say it, but you can only eat so much bacon. Um, even though so much can be pounds and pounds and pounds of bacon over a few days, but eventually it surprised me too. You can get tired of eating bacon and steak and cheeseburgers. But again, that's one of those things that you can use to jumpstart a diet program, even if you end up going back to something that looks a lot more like a mixed diet, or a standard diet with just a whole lot less um, carbs in it, a whole lot less processed food, a whole lot less starch, a whole lot less sugar. If a few days or a couple of weeks of the carnivore diet helps you get used to eating that way, then great. That's a tool that can work for you. Um, I've been playing around some with intermittent fasting. I talked to Whitten Erickson about which turns out he's doing intermittent fasting too. He's doing it a little more rigorously than I was, although I have now adopted the 24 means of intermittent fasting, which means you only eat food for 4 hours a day, which means I have to finish my golden milk before 10 o'clock. But and then you're on fasting for 20 hours. And so it while I was nerding out around on YouTube looking at intermittent fasting videos, and it hadn't occurred to me to ask the question, but it was answered nonetheless. Why hasn't this been around longer? And certainly there are certain religious practices that suggest fasting one day a week or um, something like that. But it's actually the guy who won the Nobel Prize for doing research in intermittent fasting. That Nobel Prize was awarded in 2017. So this research has only been around for a fairly short period of time, at least in this format. So um, I think that's what's going to work for me, even though I'm hungry all the time. Now I'm just sort of getting used to it. Um, and I'm going to be like Whitten Erickson. I'm going to lose 2 pounds a day until I'm transparent. Um, except for the beard. I got to keep that. Um, so that's a big part of it. And we'll save the long debate over sugar versus sugar substitutes for next month at Ostara. I guess um, we could have the showdown over which is better. But the main thing is, like, one of the things I stopped doing, and like, I just don't drink soda at all. I go to a restaurant to get water. Go to a restaurant, it's always water, a couple slices of lemon. That makes the water better for you. And I instead of paying $3 for a drink, I put that extra $3 in the waitress's tip jar.
As with anything else, the point about mindfulness is really important. So if you're concerned about the chemical impact of artificial sugar on whatever system you're concerned about it on, that's being mindful, and perhaps there's something to that. And certainly you don't need soda. Going no soda is not, that's not
impossible.
That's not a bad choice. But if you want to, again, what what are you doing? What are you trying to accomplish? And how is the best way to get there? Because a lot of things, like I said earlier, you drive yourself insane figuring out the perfect on everything. And there's something to be said for just having stuff that's delicious because it's good. That's not bad either, as long as you're in control of when you do it and you're not controlled by it. There's something to be said for it. But one of the things too is, and my point on diet soda versus full sugar is calories in versus calories out. One of the big rules to kind of consider, and Alan alluded to this, in a way, and this is something very similar that I do. He mentioned you can eat the same foods that you like to eat, but eat less of them, and you'll see impact that way. Calories in versus calories out is a fundamental truth. And there's a lot of people that have all kind of different spins on how to optimize whatever. But if you burn more calories than you take in, and you do that consistently, you will lose weight. If you consume more calories than you expend and you do that consistently, you will gain weight. Now, when I say you expend, I also mean you and whatever parasites you might have. Again, there's any like random, everybody's like, well, actually, and the deal is those actuallys are true, but we're talking about general truths. And consuming more calories than you burn helps you get bigger. Now, depending on what the other factors are in your life, that bigger can be, getting more muscular, or that bigger can more often be getting more adipose tissue. Same thing in the inverse. So that's kind of your calculation on that. What I like to do on that is something called if it fits your macros. And again, I've got a couple of different things that I'll share later in the program about, how you can track that so you can keep track. Because one of the first things a lot of folks who haven't been eating intentionally do, they have no idea what they're taking in or what they're not. They have no idea how much protein they're getting in or how much carbs or how much fat or what's in the things that they eat. A lot of people, and no shame, a lot of us have been there, just never gave it much thought. And today is a really good time to, start giving those things a little bit of thought. Oh, and so I do not forget, thank you guys very much. Started off the show with a $30 donation from GW Farnsworth, who is a very consistent donor here on the program. We appreciate that tremendously. And also, our newest Oath folk builder, Alexander Casto, bought us 3 coffees. That's a $15 donation. Thank you for that, Alexander, and congratulations on oathing in as a folk builder.
Big time. And thanks again for your hard work this weekend. No, and everything said is right, except about artificial sugar. But it's absolutely spending some time and attention on it. And to me, this, as with the financial stuff that we talked about last month, and so much other stuff that we do within Asatru, it is about mindfulness. I'm glad you used that word because that's exactly what it is. I think of Wotan as the god who lives at the conjunction of thought and memory, and that is consciousness. And um, and consciousness, mindfulness is like any other muscle. The more you use it, the better it gets. And so, you shouldn't just be idling your way through and pulling in the first fast food restaurant that you see the first time you get hungry. You should be planning your food in a way that so that you're thinking healthy. Even and I'm not above going in and getting the right kind of fast food, but again, I've learned that it's 2 burgers instead of a burger and fries, whatever. So you can indulge yourself, and you don't have to feel like being on a diet is torture that you're trying to put your body through, because that's makes you less likely um, to complete it. The goal is to help you feel like this is your lifestyle. This is how I eat, and you eat in a healthy way that's good for your body and that's good for your mind too.
would you like to take us into the exercise portion?
Sure. Exercise. So I recently went through a program. I don't know if they'd want me to name them here, but I'd be glad to talk about to anybody about it privately. I went through a it's sort of a semi-ritualized man-making type program where one of the requirements was to get an hour of physical activity every day. So that certainly helped me get start to work in back into shape. I'll tell you, I've been doing kung fu, which I took a long break while I was raising kids, but I've been back on it now since about 2013. Um, in the gym at least twice a day, more often 3 times a week. Um, there's a calisthenic regimen that I do, stretches, sets, so somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours, 3 times a week there. But then I started following a YouTube channel, not religiously, because there's only one religious thing that I do, but I started following this YouTube channel called I Am Longevity. One of the things that he sets up is there's a very precise kind of high intensity interval training sprint regimen that he recommends that I've been doing. I've tailed off a little bit here because it's been raining, but I was doing that regimen at least twice a week. And it's sprinting on and off for 30 minutes, which I do barefoot out here on my property. And I couple that with a book. Sorry, backpedal. I know one issue for people is that, not everybody likes to go to the gym. I like to go to the Kung Fu gym because it's a big, wide open space and I'm there quite often without a whole lot of people there. And especially when you're getting started, you feel like you don't know what you're doing. You're going to embarrass yourself. And Matt, I'm sure you could speak to this even more than I could, but the other gym guys will help you. I mean, if you say, how do I do this exercise? They are willing to help you out. So you shouldn't be embarrassed about being the newbie. The only thing that is embarrassing is trying to think you know what you're doing when you don't. Um, but in my experience, the guys at the gym are actually very helpful to people because they want you to be in better shape, just like they are. And they appreciate the effort that people put in down there. For myself, that's not the environment that I like. Again, I do the kung fu stuff, which I'm happy to share with anybody. Tai Chi also. But then one of the things that I did in conjunction with this regimen that I was talking about is I bought a book of body weight exercises. I should have brought it in here so I could hold it up and say, "Here's the book." See, but it's just a series of it's actually 100 different workouts, and so I downloaded a random number generator onto my phone, and so I just go in there and go, "Okay, generating it. Okay, 63," and I go out there and I do whatever exercise regimen 63 is, which takes about 20 to 30 minutes. And then I go run for 30 minutes. So that's what I do on the days I'm not downtown at the Quoon doing Kung Fu.
That's
So,
kind of a cool idea. If we could take an aside for a second, you could maybe tell folks a little bit about your kung fu bona fides and like what style you do, what that looks like. I'm sure folks are curious.
well, um, okay. So a long, long time ago, in a galaxy far away, middle Georgia, I walked into this guy. It was Roper School of Self Defense, and I had no idea what I was getting into. But that teacher was amazing, and I've got some few videos of him. He was the real thing. I mean, he worked out and did kung fu 8 hours a day. He taught class, he worked out. That's all he did. So he had sets that he taught that were 5 animals. Um, crane, snake, tiger, dragon, leopard, and then also long fist, which is like the human animal striking in its own form. So it in many ways it is like the somewhat overstated kung fu movies that you see, where the guys are doing this strikes like a snake or dragon fist and all that stuff. I mean, that's a real thing. Um, and the joy that came from learning from this guy was that he knew so much. His education was so broad that he, like, after you trained with him for a couple of years, he would then take you down the path that best suited you. Like the tall, thin guys ended up doing long fist or the advanced snake stuff. I'm more like a ground menace, and so I do tiger crane, which is it's also called Hung Kun, which is there's a lot fewer kicks. It's all about real hard um, stance work and real hard blows, where basically the idea is that you take a stance and you and you can always move forward even if by slow steps, and if you don't get knocked down, which the goal is to be a striker and not get taken to the ground, um, then it sort of all follows from there. A lot of it is breath work, especially in the higher sets. There's a lot of breath work involved, so it also has it has a lot of endurance component to it. um, and then I'm trying to relearn the kick set that he taught us, which is 64 leg attack, which I'm not much of a kicker, but I do give it, I give it a try. And again, that to me is part of the joy of doing kung fu, or all of it, is because it's also there's a large mental component. Remembering the set, remembering the full 108 moves, remembering all 64 kicks. It's difficult to do. It's certainly a lot of physical exercise, but it's also it's a lot of mental exercise as well. And so you're training your head bone in there too. So that which is another eh, muscle that needs a lot of training. And I'll say this: I'm never bored when I'm in the gym. I'm trying to learn it. Luckily, he made me write it all down, so I have notebooks for all of this stuff, where uh, so I can go back and fill in the details when I miss stuff. But yeah, I've been doing that. I did it from the first time, from like I did it for 6 years under his direct training there in Albany. And then when I moved to Tallahassee, it was a little bit slower. I was gone from it for about 10 years. And then when I got divorced in 2012, I went back and started training with him in Atlanta. He was gracious enough to let me go up and stay with him a weekend at a time. He retaught me the stuff that I had forgotten, and then taught me the upper sets of the Hung Gar stuff. So definitely grateful for that opportunity. And I feel like that it is, I mean, it it gives me a thing that I can do to stay in shape. And I may not be able to bench press as much, but I can do a spin jump kick and hurt myself and not somebody else.
I think it's worth saying here too, there is a whole lot of, and I think this as much or more so with diet, depending on what people's goals are. And I think that martial arts is a little bit different because people don't just get into it as an exercise or as a physical thing. You get into it to learn a skill. So it is a little bit different. But when looking at exercise to achieve a result, either to gain muscle or to lose body fat, there's a million different ideas on what the best routine is, or the best exercise is, or the best set and rep ratio almost all of them are good if you just do them and stick to doing them. The consistency is the key, but something that afflicts everyone, and I don't think I can say it enough, is paralysis by analysis, where everyone will try a new thing every week and then, no, this doesn't work, and start something else. And they don't give any of them time to bear a result or a fair shot. And then they psych themselves out by stacking up kind of unforced errors on that when you don't need to. The truth of it is, if you are sedentary right now, becoming less sedentary, unless you have some serious physical disability I don't know about, is going to be good for you. It's going to be good for you in lots of different ways.
Be
There's a
good for
lot
your
to be.
mindset. Absolutely. And if you're truly sedentary and like that, it's those first few moves are the ones that can really make a whole lot of difference in your life. Just going from no hours of exercise a week to 2 hours a week.
Mhm.
But it can be
That's
tough because,
tremendous.
you got to loosen yourself back up.
Something is better than nothing. You get to a point where no, you need to push yourself if you want to make progress. But if you're just starting, go out there and do some. Just about anything is going to be something really good. And if you're fat and you want to be less fat, go out there and, sweat a little bit and do some stuff. If you're scrawny and you want to put on muscle, put your body through stimulus that's going to require that it gets more muscle in order to accomplish. But also, if you're a person who's aging, and this is good for a person throughout their lives, but specifically as we age, weight training and doing things that strengthen your bone density becomes increasingly important. The I'll say this tremendously about martial arts. Anybody who doesn't know, this May I got my black belt in Danzanryu Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and it's been such a cool thing and something I wish I found a lot earlier in my life. But so much of it is mental, like a mind muscle connection with forming muscle memory towards movement that you do. There's a focus when you're doing, in a way, it's a form of physical yoga in the sense that you have to do a set of actions in a particular way, focusing on a perfect implementation of those actions. And your mind has to be in what you are doing. Or, there's something called no mind, where you have to be open to reflexively do what you're doing. But either way, you're engaged in a task for whatever those hours are that you're in the dojo. That's very refreshing, and at least in my life has been a much needed reprieve from all the other things I have on my mind, to be able to go in there and like, it's hard for me meditatively to just sit and let all the thoughts leave. It's difficult for a lot of us to do. But it's different when you're physically engaged and you have something else that you're focused on. And I think it's very beneficial mentally. And I think that's particularly important for folks as they age. But I also think those of us engaged in Asatru, and we make the point all the time that, Asatru isn't about Viking warriors. Like, you get a mental image in your head, especially when you just start out, and especially if you just start out as a young man, that's what this is this like Viking warrior religion. And as much as we spend time talking about how that isn't the depth and breadth of our faith, it is an important aspect, especially for our young men, but also for our ladies, that you're active. You have agency over your body and how you use it and how you implement your will to shape that. The connection to the health of the leak, which is part of our soul complex. In our faith, your physical presentation is a part of your soul complex, not just the body itself, but also the image you project, from how you look to how you carry yourself to whether you have a martial bearing. All of those things are elevated through, martial arts. And again, jiu-jitsu is the best. Japanese jiu-jitsu is the only way to go. Everything else is not effective in real life. Kung fu is better. Blah, blah. Everybody thinks their school is the best. all of them are better than, sitting at your computer and not doing it.
Right.
So there's a lot of really, really good. Again, if we all get to an elite point where we're debating, how to edge out other top martial artists in the world, then that's an awesome place to be. Let's all get there and then we can have that argument. If we're so physically elite that we argue over which set and rep scheme, if we're all Mr. Olympia competitors, cool, that's a really valuable argument to have. But for most of the rest of us, it's really kind of beside the point. Picking something and doing it well and throwing yourself into it is going to give you very good results. And it's not just about finding something that's the most optimal physically, but also something that you like, that you're interested in, and that you're likely to continue doing and keep up the longevity of doing.
That definitely is a big part of it. Which is why Kung Fu's been such a good fit for me. That because I like doing it, so I will keep doing it. I like just to a certain extent, even though some days I think it's really boring doing like the Kung Fu reps the calisthenic reps that I do every time I'm in the Kung Fu gym. It's the same 6 exercises in the warm up, but even then, there's something comfortable about that routine that works, and then so I can get my body warmed up so that when I'm doing doing the set work, then it all just feels right. It feels right, and and there's certainly the idea there, and I would suspect that it's the same thing in the when you're in the weight gym. You fake it till you make it. You just keep telling yourself you like it, and you like it. You know, um, I I I guess I'm telling on myself a little bit, but there are many days I'm in there, trying to knock out my sit-ups and think, I could just walk out of here. I could just leave and nobody would care. And that's true. Nobody would care, but I would not be in the whatever condition I'm in. But, if I had followed that nagging part of my mind that said that it's not good for you, because it is. It absolutely is good for you. And if it, even going to um, the stuff that I would, and I have certainly learned to be more broad-minded about a lot of things. I do think it's sort of silly that that all the parking places at the right by the door of the gym are all taken, so people can walk the shortest possible distance to get in there and walk on the treadmill. But if that's what helps you feel good, and you like the protected, safe environment of being in the gym like that, and you don't want to walk around in your neighborhood, um, and you think you're just more comfortable in the gym, even though it's the same basic idea, walking on a treadmill instead of walking on the road, do it. Do what you're comfortable doing, and don't, and like Matt, like you said, I think it's absolutely right. Don't think that just because you're not perfect the first time you do it or the 100th time you do it, that's a reason to quit. You just keep going. You just gotta dory it out. Keep swimming, swimming, swimming. Don't you guys watch Disney movies?
It was a deep cut.
Hey, I'm so
So
old. I remember when MTV played music videos.
it's been about 30 years. So,
I was
oh,
6.
okay. Before before we move on, I would like to mention that Tyler M. Hall bought us a coffee. Thank you very much for that, Tyler. It's a $5 donation, and we appreciate it greatly. And Bobby in Pennsylvania donated $20 to help us pay off Njordshof. Thank you
Hey,
so much, Bobby. We appreciate it. We're getting closer just about every day on that. Um,
yeah, can we say how much money we raised at the auction?
the auction at Njordshof this last weekend, correct me if I'm wrong, was 4,500 ish.
Yes, that's right.
That was pretty amazing. So this is due as well. Everyone who donated items to that auction, some of them were at the event, some of them were not, and sent in items to be auctioned. Thank you so much.
Big
That
time.
absolutely counts. It counts in a huge way, and it makes some really special things happen. We are able to accomplish a lot of the things that we do, certainly due to the blessings of the ICEER, due to some of the good luck that we have built through actions over the years, but also, and in a huge proportion, due to the generosity and commitment of the folks listening to this program right now and our wonderful members that give of themselves either through their hard work and dedication, through their financial gifts, and all the other ways that they contribute. You guys are amazing, and I am truly astounded by the things we're able to make happen together. So thank you guys.
Because that's another, like Gilbert, the bowls and idols and things that he carves, like that little sailor, it's just that is a different kind of magic to me. I mean, that's just he to me it's just a chunk of wood, but he can see in there and bring that out and just make something beautiful. It's quite
One of
magnificent.
our fantastic members named Gilbert first is a tremendous donor, and we appreciate that way just with cash donations, but truly astounding with the beautiful woodwork that he donates. Pieces in all of our auctions, it is so far above and beyond, and it's very, very much appreciated, and it's beautiful work. We also, and it's kind of a cool story, there is a gentleman, a local gentleman that has gone to our food pantries and was appreciative of those food pantries, and decided he's some sort of a potter, and decided to make, I don't know, 10, 15 different pottery items as gifts for the Hoff that helped us in the auction, and some of which were used for ritual there that are beautiful pieces he was able to make. So some really special things that way.
And I'll tell you, I may have told this last time I was on, but I'll say it again so you can just sit still and listen. The other thing that the food pantry does for us, like for whatever reason, we've had a hard time keeping that grass mowed over there. And we showed up for a work day and the grass had been mowed. And it was one of the guys, his aunt comes through the food pantry every month, and he said, I drove by, I saw your grass needed mowing, so I went and mowed it. Um, that's that we are ingratiating ourselves into the community in a very positive way. We're making positive steps toward reinvigorating the faith.
Absolutely. So before we get to our questions, or is there any more things you wanted to talk about up front here this evening, Alan?
I think we've laid out the summary. We could certainly go 4,000 miles to the center of any of those rabbit holes, and I have on more than one occasion. But we can run through the questions, and certainly another thing that I meant to mention at the beginning is that we can also take questions on anything else. I mean, if you the financial stuff that I talked about last month, if that resonated with you, but you have some other questions you want to talk to me about, I mean, I'm happy to. We can look at that, or about the dark money pools that control Wall Street. Um, I don't know if silver's going to break out over 35 this year, but I'm hoping that it does. So, any of those things, or any other topic that you feel like that you want us to discuss, I'm sure Matt's up for it.
Yeah, keep that in mind, guys. Literally anything you want to talk about. This adulting with Alan topics, Asatru topics, or things just in general. We appreciate you guys being here, and we appreciate your questions. I promised you guys some tools. So a couple of things that I talked about earlier. This thing, if it fits your macros, really, really helped me. There was a time in my life that I was just so focused on getting bigger. All I would do was focus on my protein, and I would get tons of protein, but I wouldn't care about all the other stuff that I'd get. So I got bigger. I got a lot more muscular. I also got quite a bit fatter, and I crossed over that obesity threshold that I don't want to be across. And this helped me get back on the other side of it. So this link that Nick put up, and it's a lot of stuff. So maybe he could put it in the description to this video. I'm not sure how that works for those of you who are listening on to this as a podcast later on any of our podcast locations. But it's justoufitness.com, and you can kind of go from there. And it talks about the ability, like how to do the calculations for your macros, what to do with that information. And anybody who doesn't know about macros, there's your macronutrients, there's your carbohydrates, your proteins, and your fats. In order to track that, there's another tool that I use on my phone, my Fitness Pal. If you could post the link up for that, Nick, that would be awesome. My Fitness Pal, it's a calorie/meal tracker. You can make your own recipes of stuff and load in your own foods that you like there, but it has a database of lots and lots and lots of things other people have put in there. Can give you really good guidelines and get you close to calculating that number just right, because a few tweaks here and there done over the long run can make a really big difference. So this is something that, don't be intimidated. I was at first. It took, just a few days, and then it's old hat and you're used to it, and it's very easy to use, so stick with it. But it's helped me out tremendously. It's helped Mandy out tremendously, and we use it every single day and have for a decade now. Also, it's really important to be able to track where you're at so you can know your progress. It's easy over the course of months and months to figure. There's a lot of things. You can look in the mirror. You can see how your clothes fit you. You can judge by the reaction of other people. Remember, it was a really cool day for me. I had this thing. I was scrawny for a long time, and I wanted to be this big, strong, larger than life guy when I was a young man, when I was a kid. And used to people would see your physical presence and react a certain way. And I remember I was accustomed, I was in a diverse place in Anchorage, Alaska, and I was accustomed to, in the bar, if somebody bumps into you, like them turning around and getting mad at me for having the audacity to be bumped into, like you're in the way, and they come at you or whatever. I remember the day, because I'd been working out. I started working out in 2000. Yeah, in 2000, I started working out and trying to put on size and get bigger. And I remember the day I was so used to that kind of interaction. And this ebony gentleman bumped into me at the bar and then turned around to come around on me and get in my face about it. Looked at me. He's like, "Whoops, my bad. I'll get you a beer." And that, again, those are the things that sneak up on you that you realize. But subtle changes are hard to figure out. And so this tool is the scale that I use that does like an electronic impedance body fat calculation. It's really cool because it calculates a lot of different things on here, though, too. It does your BMI, which I don't like, or I don't know how to make best use of, perhaps. It's got stuff. It calculates your hydration, your lean mass versus your fat mass, your skeletal mass, all kind of things. And it's very, very useful. It syncs with an app on your phone. It's not expensive, but it helps a lot. And it helps. People may argue about its accuracy compared to other ways of calculating body fat. That's not really my point. It's accurate to itself. So if you're checking in with it once a month or so, you will be able to see your progress go in one direction or another. I'm not saying take the numbers for gospel, but you can take the difference in change
right
to be indicative of what you're doing. because there's a lot of different ways to measure that are better and that are, I say, that are better or worse, or that are sometimes more expensive and more difficult to come by. This is a very easy one that is within everybody's grasp, and it helps you be able to compare from one month to the next on what direction you're running in a really efficient way. The other thing, and the last link I'm going to throw at you, is for a food scale, because people want, if you're using the other app that I talked about measuring your food and how much you have, this allows you to do that in a way to where you can, find out how many grams of what you're having and really dial in on that. And again, it seems like a lot. I was really surprised how fast I was able to adapt to it and make it not a big deal, and something that I do. And it's something that I do every single day, and I have for a decade or more now. But all these tools are ways to help you if that's something you want to do. The biggest thing is we don't allow your self-consciousness of your current state and how far you are away from where you'd like to be prevent you from getting closer to that. There's no good that is accomplished by wallowing in the fact that you are not who you want to be. If you aim for that, or you aim past that, every step you take there, that's a win. That's a victory for you. If you wake up, 3 months from now and you're a little bit closer to that person that you should be and that you want to be, we all want to celebrate that with you. It's hard to make life changes that sometimes take a very long time for you to feel the effects that you want, but it's worth it, and you can do it. You have a community of people here in the Asatru Folk Assembly that would love to help you do it. And that's something else I want to mention. Within the Asatru Folk Assembly, we have to do a lot of our social media in-group things on a platform called MeWe. Facebook purged us, as they did so many of people back in early 2001. So we get on MeWe and we have a group called Physical Excellence. And a lot of our members, both members who are in really good shape and members who are in atrocious shape, but have decided to have the courage to step up and fix it, are on there. And we try to help each other, celebrate each other's successes, talk about different, ideas and ways and tools to help each other succeed and to move everybody forward. Don't be ashamed of your shortcomings to the extent that it motivates you to do something better. But there's nothing gained in wallowing in it. We all have the opportunity, starting literally at this moment, certainly starting tomorrow, to make our physical condition better. And I want to encourage everybody to do that. And if you need help or ideas or anything that way, please reach out, because there's a whole lot of people that would love to help you accomplish those things. I'm going to move on to some questions tonight. So from a VNS email, it's a good time to remind everybody, vns@runestone.org. Ask questions anytime you want, and we will have those questions answered for you on the next VNS episode. Please do that. And I'm glad Tyler took advantage of it. Hey there, question for the show tonight. Can you speak on the carnivore diet and whether or not you recommend it specifically for someone who is trying to lose some fat and put on some muscle? Also, any tips for newcomers in the gym? Thanks. Alan, you may want to touch on this. You talked about it a little bit earlier. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, that's sort of the carnivore diet was one of the first big changes that I made, like one of those first, like, slap in the face title changes that I tried when I was sort of tired of carrying around too much weight, and it did, it did jolt my system in a way. I think we did it for about 3 months, and I did lose some weight doing it, and it just got me in a healthier frame of mind. So I would, it's it definitely works. And if you can stay on it, it's one of those things, again, that you have to use advisedly. I know there are a lot of doctors who have some criticisms about it. So you got to sort of monitor some of your other blood pressure or whatever. I mean, I've never been much for measuring anything. So it except I know when I'm losing weight because I get another notch in my belt. But but if that it seems to me that before you would go on it, to adopt it as a full on lifestyle, you'd want to have a physical because, you know, first of all the mythology out there about cholesterol and those sorts of things, I think are exactly that. I think there's, you know, I've watched enough of, in fact, I've read the Raw Egg Nationalist and eat a lot of raw eggs every week. But that too is one of those things that there's been too much hype made out of, too little bad information. So, but do your research, and if it worked for you and you love bacon, I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. And it's one of those things that can help you start to turn your life around just by developing new habits.
So I think carnivore diet or anything ketogenic like that is a really good shake stuff up and kickstart fat loss. I think it's good for that. I don't think it's good long term. In my experience and talking to a lot of people who've done it, there's not a lot of long term success on it. As a matter of fact, the guy who's kind of the founder of it has recently, recanted that that's a real good thing to do for the long term. But for the short term to shake stuff up, I think it's good. I've also anecdotally, and again, I haven't tried it myself. Anecdotally, I don't feel that it's good for muscle building. Carbohydrates have an effect of fueling your muscle gain in a number of different ways that I don't think you achieve the same when you cut those out and you're running a deficit or you're running ketosis. And what I've read many times in many different articles by various bodybuilders and gym enthusiasts who've tried it is that there's a lot less success than they would have wanted as far as muscle building goes. But I've heard really good things for fat loss. And I think that's something I know a lot of people who've gotten a lot of benefit out of the fat loss element of it.
Right.
Question: where did Matt get his Thor's hammer? It looks epic. So I wanted to look it up because it's modeled after an archaeological find from Otis Hogg in Östergötland in Sweden, and it's really neat. Really neat hammer. Had it for a number of years. It initially had the kind of gold facing on it that the original hammer had. That has worn off over the years, unfortunately. But and it's the same model, or it's modeled after the same hammer that my very first hammer I had was, which was just a little cheap brass one that I had from the museum store that used to be in the malls at the time. All right.
And that one was made by he who shall not be named, right?
That's why I didn't name him.
Still a cool hammer.
Yeah, I think it's really neat hammer. Do you know any remedies for the effects of detoxing from processed foods? Alan, you may want to take that one.
Wow. No, other than I guess I was never so far over the edge that that I had to detox from it. But um, I, I- it's, I would guess though that it's like anything else. If you felt that bad for so long that feeling bad feels normal, and then your body starts to work like it should, it's like an engine falling into a good rhythm. If it starts revving like it should, then it's gonna you're gonna feel different. You know, get get some sleep, get lots of water. That's the other couple of things is when you're, especially when you're making a big change like that, even if you're doing the carnivore diet, or if you're going to a more natural food diet from too many trips through the drive-through, water is certainly a big part of that. um, I have come to believe that, and I say it like that because I know that a lot of doctors don't like too much salt in the water. I put a little sprinkle of salt, um, natural organic sea salt. There's some from California that I buy that cost more than I would like it to, but it has more minerals in it instead of just table salt. It's not just sodium chloride, it has magnesium and a lot of other things in it. But I put a little of that in my water. A little bit of lemon in your water makes it alkaline. That makes and it's counterintuitive, but that's what it does. Um, that too makes water better for you. Ideally, if you and we're making Asatru healthy again, and like RFK Jr., I I bought a Berkey water filter so I could start filtering the fluoride out of my water. Um, so I drink super healthy water. I guess you could buy bottled water if you don't have access to a water filter, especially if your water system is fluoridated. I think that stuff's really bad for you. I know there are people who disagree. Um, to be continued. But if you're detoxing like that, drink lots of water, and um, even you can, and it doesn't have to be like a switch. You don't have to just turn it off. I mean, you can go from 5 burgers a week to 2, and you're still doing yourself a whole lot of healthy good. You can drink raw milk and eat raw eggs, especially if you could find somebody like on Craigslist or at the food co-op that can give you real eggs. The eggs that my aunt gets for us here, it's just, you know, the yolks are orange, not this pale yellow like you get with grocery store eggs. It's a totally different food than getting anything else. So the healthier you eat, and you know what one guy was watching, he doesn't like almond milk, but I think almond milk is better than homogenized milk. And if you can't get raw milk, because it's, if because you have to take it away from your dog, because raw milk is usually sold for pet food only. But if you buy your dog some raw milk and he lets you have some, that's actually a pretty healthy food, in my opinion. Um, and the nut milks, if you can't get um, stuff, try to find some that's at least not homogenized. To me, it's the homogenization that uh, causes milk to be really unhealthy for you. But and yes, you're going to be detoxing those nut oils as they start to break out of your cell membranes. They're going to um, make your digestives, and as your digestive system starts to loosen up, that too is going to be, there's going to be some period of discomfort in there. Um, as a transitional thing, you could eat a lot, or a fair bit of oats and grains and that sort of thing. I did that for a while till I sort of purged my system. Now I tend to I do a lot of probiotics. I drink a fair bit of kefir. I eat yogurt. Those are the sorts of things that can really help you reinstate a healthy digestive regimen that where your food processes better like it ought to. And again, the occasional fasting can give your body a chance to clean itself out in between big meals, and so that you're feeling better overall.
So, to the question, as far as the remedies for the effects of detoxing, Alan
Water and
touched on a
sleep.
really important one earlier. Um, if you are replacing your processed foods with very nutrient dense, often very fat heavy foods, that's very satiating. One of the things is if you get like unsatisfied and you're hungry, that's an uncomfortable feeling. If you're not just getting rid of processed foods, but you're replacing them, especially with proteins and fat that are very satiating, you will counteract a lot of the fullness issues. Also, the being hydrated. A lot of the times you feel like you're hungry when you're really just thirsty. Keeping yourself well hydrated helps you to feel full as well. Another thing that is hard is the psychological effect of carbohydrates for your mental health. If you're used to being having a very high sugar diet and you comfort eat, it can be really jarring if you try to shut that off all at once. Know that Alan and some folks are not fans, but I do think that if you replace processed sugar with fake sugar alternatives, you get a lot of the sugar negativity out of it while still satisfying the sweet tooth and the psychological need for the comfort eating. So I think that's a really good option if you still need to have that in your diet or still want to have that in your diet. I think it takes you a better route. If it's just about the processing, though, if fat also has an effect on the comfort eating phenomenon to where it helps get you some mental health in there and it makes you feel full for longer as well. So I think those are some tools to help with with you know the detoxing effects.
And for me, one of the things that helped me feel full, although it's too easy to get too many calories, is nuts. You know, I you know the members club big box of deluxe mixed nuts that lived in the drawer for a long time, and also pumpkin seeds. Are really good for you. And
And everybody's got slightly different stuff they're trying to go for and stuff they're trying to do. If you just eat less things that you know are not good for you and you eat more things that are, one of the other things that
right,
is a truth, if you like, I gave you the macro calculator deal earlier, any of that is going to put your protein much higher than if you are not counting it, it typically is. For example, usually I'm eating about 285 plus grams of protein a day. Um, if you're eating that much protein, like the diet that I suggest isn't eating less. It'll probably have many of you eating more than you're used to, but it's a much different ratio of macronutrients. And if you eat all of the protein that you need to get, there's a lot less room for you to eat junk that you don't want. You find it's easier because you are full if you're full of good things before you start resorting to not good things.
I think that's an important way to think about it. One of the phrases that Ann said to me not that long ago, but it's just not worth the calories. Like if you're going to only eat 1,800 calories a day or 2,500 calories a day, whatever your mark is, instead of a bag of chips, you want a bag of dried blueberries. You want something that's good, that has good nutrient value, because you only have so many calories you can take in a day. So you got to have nutrient dense food, not empty calories.
I was just going to note.
I know Doritos taste good, but they're not good for you.
I was going to note because 280 grams of protein, that's a lot of protein. How much of that, if any, is from supplements, powder like whey or protein powder?
It all depends on.
That's a lot of steak, if not.
Well, it's a lot of steak. Beef is really expensive, so it really depends on the day and what other stuff I'm eating. So, as you may have picked up, I'm not real big on this cut out processed foods. I really don't care about chemicals. What I care about is overall carbs, fat, and protein in versus not, and adjusting that based on, where I'm at. But the thing is, if you eat a lot of processed stuff, it spikes your carbs up really, really high, and then it doesn't leave you a lot of room for anything else. So I could, eat healthy things or, Allen approved things a lot of the day and be okay, or I can have a very small amount of matte super sugar stuff and blow all of my carbs in one, in one brief meal and then have to figure it out for the rest of the day. So if I'm splurging on something or eating out or doing something else, then I'll hit my carbs and fat number way before I get my protein number. And in that case, then I'll supplement with whey protein. But most of the time, and again, early on, whey protein is really your friend on getting that protein number where you need it. But once your body adjusts, I don't find it to be too much at all. As a matter of fact, a lot of the time, I have trouble staying under my protein where I want it. I think today I can check if it fit or I'm going to check my Fitness Pal right now and tell you, yeah, today I'm going to have 324 grams of protein by the time I go to bed. That's not difficult for me because my body's very used to it because I've been eating a lot of protein for a very long time. It is a challenge up front. I think a lot of you, if you take stock of what you're eating, you'd be surprised how little protein that you're getting. But most of that, today, the perfect example, a lot of it, I got like 10 grams of collagen in my coffee this morning. My joints aren't great, and I think collagen helps that. I really do feel like I benefit from taking collagen. I'm going to eat these things called Real Good, emphasis on real, that are these like frozen chicken strips from Costco that are minimally breaded, minimally messed with, fairly close to being something the Lawspeaker would recognize as food. But they're really good, and the ratio is really good. They taste very good. They're very satisfying. That's where I'm going to get the majority of my protein today. But yeah, I mean, steak's good if you can get it. It often gets your fat high, but depending on what you're doing, that's not necessarily bad.
Eggs.
I do a lot of, chicken is always a good go-to just because the ratio is right, but you get bored with it. So vary it up. It doesn't all have to come from one source. There's so many different ways to do it. But yeah, whey protein supplementation is certainly your friend starting out on that. And you can get there, but there are other ways to do it. If you get creative and get used to it, you start getting a feel for what it looks like to track it, to answer the question. We have another question that's completely unrelated, but kind of a random to put out there. Has anyone tried to quote unquote meet the gods or a god of ours by taking psilocybin for a spiritual journey? In the AFA, official or not sanctioned. I will say that certainly I'm sure that people have in an unsanctioned and unofficial way. I am fairly positive that folks have tried to do that in perhaps they have vacationed to other countries or other places where that is a legally acceptable practice. In
We
a
do
general,
not officially condone that. Officially.
Huh? So that was the question, official or non-sanctioned. So I will say theoretically, there's certainly a case to be made for some validity in doing that. And I think that's, if you read on that from a variety, not just psilocybin, but a number of different substances, that is a commonality in the human existence. The process of breaking down barriers mentally that prevent you from perceiving subtle things in the world around us there's validity to that, certainly. And I think that's one of the things that folks sometimes try to do through non-fungal methods like various breathing exercises or meditative practice to accomplish chemically something similar in the brain, that I think is probably much easier accessed in some of the traditional fungal processes. Do you have anything you'd like to add on that, Lawspeaker?
From what I've read, it can be a tool that can get you to to, like you said, leverage some of those doors that are stuck half open. It the important thing is always about setting, and having somebody there that has some idea what's going on. I think it would be a useful avenue to explore for those who are interested. It's like any other tool. It's something that's not for everybody. It's not, and it's certainly not mere entertainment. I think it is something to be approached with awe and reverence, and done in that way. I believe it could be a useful tool.
Absolutely, I concur. Be careful out there, psychonauts.
Bring back some souvenirs.
Beetlejuice. Matt, what is your favorite pre-workout? So there's a thing, and I didn't preload it for Nick to show a link. There is a President Trump themed pre-workout called Trigger Warning. And I'll front load with this. You may have caught on to some of Alan and my back and forth about energy drinks. I am very, very resistant to feeling the effects of caffeine. My tolerance for a lot of stuff has been extremely, extremely high most of my life. And I find that when I'm taking medication for a variety of things, I've found it in any, with alcohol. I've found it with, when any kind of like marijuana or anything, my tolerance is very high, which sounds cool. And in some ways it is, but it also means that if you're slamming stuff to go hard, you very easily cross the line of where you're trying to go before you recognize that you're there. But the same has been the case with that's it. Nick, you're a magician. So that's this. I say that to say this. Being, lifting heavy and being really involved in the gym and working out for 25 years now. Also, yeah, they're not a sponsor. If you would like to if anybody would like to have me sponsor their products or be a sponsor of the program by having us advertise their products, this can go on the list because I support it. I would not advertise anything that I do not fully believe in the efficacy of. This, I have, again, I've tried all of these different pre-workouts over the years. And what I would find with a lot of them, and in order for me to try them, I would only want to get the super extreme heart attack 5,000, whatever labeled stuff that is advertised to be really, really hardcore. And sometimes I'd take it and I'd feel amazing the first day. And the second day I'd be like, that's all right. And for third or fourth day, like, And then after that, it was just flavored water. And I say that, I'm sure chemically it did something, but as far as me feeling the effects of it, the pre-workout I talked about, that Trigger Warning, is the first thing I've ever tried and I've tried it for months. It still works every time that I feel that it does stuff. But I suppose, haha, trigger warning, it is a very powerful diuretic as well. If you take trigger warning, it will really, really mess with your stomach. And I don't think it's like a just till you get used to it. I have found that it continues to mess with your stomach in the long term to the point of I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze because it just kind of wrecks your guts. But you get the stimulant effect, but you also get the endurance effect. You can push more and go longer, and I find that's pretty consistent in it. It helps with your feeling like you're in good shape journey because I think of the diuretic effect. So you're flushing out a lot of fat and other stuff, and you're messing with your body composition that way. But I found that to be the most effective. And if that's something you want to do, that's the one that's worked the most for me.
My pre-workout routine is driving to the gym.
I mean, there is that. It's a more subtle approach to pre-workout.
Getting geared up in here. Got to talk about cold showers too, man. I know that's
so. Nick had a question in the queue that I don't understand. Maybe he'll send me some more on the back end to make it make more sense to me. Okay, so American Farmer says, I'm more convinced that encouraging women to do Pilates is better than yoga, mainly because I don't want Indians dominating women's desires, but also teaching girls such powerful spirituality goes too far. Now I understand Nick's question. Alan, do you have any comment you would like to make on that?
And still be able to not watch my back constantly at Ostara next month. I understand the gist of the question. I'll say that traditionally, and we are traditionalist people, traditionally the path to higher attainment by the each through the as it is bisected by sex. The female path has always been devotion and service, as opposed to the left-hand path that is the male path, the wet path that men follow through physical. That said, I hope that's the sound of a LaCroix cracking open. Oh, good. Oh, good. So beer's good for you in small doses. Now, that being said, I think that the American yoga scene has been watered down enough that the vast majority of yoga studios are not doing anything that looks like real hardcore spiritual based yoga. And I can tell you that the yoga that I have been doing for the last 13 years incorporates a large rune component. So I have swept those two divergent paths together and I sometimes call it Rundalini yoga. That's trademark. You got to pay me a nickel if you say it. That being said, I think there is a real danger if you got on the path where you're in in Swami want to have a good time yoga studio, then I think it could lead people astray if they are easily led. I don't think that that's our folk. I mean, I don't think you find it. I don't think you find your way to this path by being easily led into any of the wrong paths that are out there. It's certainly a valid point for the vast majority of NPCs, if that's the term that you want to use out there, that that could be led astray into a wrong spiritual practice. But I think most of them are doing something that looks a lot like Pilates already. They're doing hot yoga or something like that, which is not the deep spiritual practice that could lead them into errancy.
Yeah, what Alan said. No, really and truly. I think that I also do not want to encourage white women to go to some creepy guy's ashram to get led astray by his yoga sex cult. And I say that and it's funny, but that's a thing. And that at one time was a prevalent thing. I think that what is so much more prevalent now is soccer mom yoga taught by an aged hippie that is basically doing Pilates, and it's pretty good. They're in there getting some exercise and doing stretching and doing things, and I don't think that broaches upon a deep spiritual practice in most cases that people are going to be familiar with, unless that's specifically what they're seeking out with it. I don't think women in the United States, by and large, if they're going to find a yoga studio for health and fitness purposes, are going to run any risk of that. Now, yeah, if they're trying to pursue it for the spiritual aspect of it, they do run the risk of, the creepy guru guy, or they also could potentially access some higher spirituality through it, which is kind of its own issue. But I don't think that's at play in the fitness yoga realm here in the United States, at least.
Still something to be on the watch out for.
I mean,
valid point.
Yeah. And I say that literally knowing people who have gone and traveled places to go to some guy's ashram to do their, yoga, and there was a predatory sexual element to that equation. So it's a thing, and it's a thing, that I'm 1 degree away of knowing somebody who was involved in. So we have another question. Thoughts on dividend investing, REITs, to retire early? I'm looking into that. Alan, this one's all you.
Okay. So real estate investment trust, REIT. I'm a strong advocate of passive income. If you can, leverage it right, it can be good. I tend to like things on a smaller scale, though. If you watch, I didn't understand the real estate collapse of 2008 until I watched the movie The Big Short, and I think that the danger of real estate investment trusts is very much like what happened in 2008. You get, 100 D-class mortgages and wrap them together, and they call it one A-class mortgage, but it's still just a whole bunch of D's, and it's going to, and that's what happened in 2008. We had all these different investment type instruments that were hyping up the real estate prices. And honestly, from what I've read, your mileage may vary, but all the leading indicators are that we're in 2007 right now. Like, real estate is overinflated. We're hanging over the cliff again. There are more of these trust instruments out there and derivatives, although they call them something different, than there were in 2007. So it's you know, rather than getting involved in a real estate investment trust, I'd buy a rental property. I mean, that's the, do one thing that you can manage, that you can keep an eye on. I know that I'm in a lot of these investment ideas, I am the counterforce to what. So fine, I'll just say it. I don't own any stock. don't have, I don't have any of that stuff. But what I've done is I've paid off all my debt. I mean, except for my mortgage, but I don't have debt. And so rather than having investments on one hand and a lot of debt on the other, I own my cars, and so I can, I've got a rental property that that doesn't have any debt on it, and so we can, so I mean, it takes a long time to make your money back, but that's as I look to retirement in another 25 or 30 years. That's one of the things that I have to be aware of, that there's that there has to be cash flow in some measure. That Social Security's not going to do it. You definitely need to have some sort of something that looks like an investment portfolio. You got to be, and everybody's risk reward ratio and that sort of thing is all is scaled differently. I just don't like. I think the stock market's a bet, like a REIT is a bet of a certain kind. Bitcoin or any of that stuff, I think it's all a gamble of a certain type. And I don't like gambling on something I'm not in control of. The rental property that I own, I'm in charge of. I let people rent or not. They pay me. I do the maintenance. It's all right there in hand. And that's again, that's a lot harder to do if you're working a 8 to 6 gig, and you don't have time to mess with that sort of thing. I understand it. Live small, own your vehicles, don't borrow money.
There you go. Sound advice. So our next question, and the last question we have in the queue for tonight: should someone who is obese focus more on cardio and low calorie intake rather than weightlifting and counting protein? Alan, do you have thoughts?
I would go back to what you said earlier. I think that whatever works to get you started. You know, for a lot of people who are obese, I mean, cardio is walking, or I mean, if you can't walk, you could get on a bicycle, and turn the resistance up, or get on a rowing machine. But those sorts of things, I think cardio is beneficial. I but I For the studies I've read, the weightlifting is actually better for you as far as losing weight. So certainly, I think if you've led a sedentary lifestyle for very long at all, you need to start working up your cardio, but you need to lift weights too. And I think one will help with your wind, and the other one will help you lose weight faster.
Yes. So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Really
Do
and serious,
something.
something to consider. And there's different levels of obesity. There's, Discovery Channel level of obesity, and then there's just somebody that's, let himself get a little bit too fat. For any normal range of, sometimes if you are so far obese, there's very little you can do until you reach a certain level of progress. So, like Alan mentioned, just walking a little bit is a big deal for you. And that's great. Do that by all means. If the problem is a massive amount of overeating, eating a little bit less progressively will make a big impact in that scenario. If you're, a more normal level of obesity, the thing to consider, I would say the latter as opposed to the former. So if we're going to have the hard dichotomy between either doing cardio and lower calorie intake, or counting your protein and lifting weights, I'm going to go lifting weights, counting your protein. because muscle is a calorie furnace. Building your muscle mass, you're in a spot when you're really fat to where you can do body recomposition in a way that other people can't. You have a lot of stored energy, stored calories that can be put towards your effort at gaining muscle in a different way than people who aren't in the same kind of overage. If you ate the exact same calories, but you made sure you got the protein recommendation that I would recommend, that change alone would make a difference to you at that level of obesity and would help your body if you were doing some kind of weightlifting, do recomposition in an important way. And the more muscle you build, the more every movement your body makes does to burn calories. Another thing to consider, though, when you talk about weightlifting that is worthwhile, when you're that big, walking in and of itself is a form of weightlifting. If you are squatting 500
Body
pounds
weight.
every time you use the toilet, that counts. That's and I mean this. Sometimes people who are very obese will develop really, really advanced lower body musculature because just moving around, they are literally moving. It's like the rest of us with a 100-pound rucksack or 100-pound squat bar on our back doing things. So that's something to consider too. A really fat person doing body weight exercise is weight training in a way that's, much more direct than somebody who's a lot lighter. But yeah, I think that weight training is essential. We talk about cardio, but if you're a person who's very obese and you're not in good shape, if you're really putting the energy into your weight training, you're going to be sweating, you're going to be out of breath, you're going to be cardiovascularly accomplishing something with that weight training. And I think you'll see results faster. I would, if you are able, figure out what your calorie intake is, do the math, get your protein right. If you're still eating too much, also decrease your calories, do weight training, and then also do cardio. That would be optimal. But if you have to do one or the other, I'd say the weight training and protein.
If you're going to do cardio, I think HIIT is the way to do it. I surprised myself when I started running. That's one of the things where I actually did start to see a change in my waist size, even though, 30 minutes, 3 times a week.
Anybody who's not familiar, high intensity interval training, and I thoroughly agree with Alan on that, is a much better route to cardio for body composition than other types of cardio. There's something that happens, and somebody who's more of a chemist on here can explain it in a more detailed way, but the idea of high intensity interval training is you do bursts of near maximal effort exertion broken up by periods of steady state cardio, brief periods, and you alternate those back and forth in intervals for whatever amount of time you do that. And a lot of people do that for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe up to a half an hour, but typically not longer than that. There's a lot of different varieties of how to do that. I typically will do that on a treadmill or on the stair climber. A lot of people do that with sprints and walk and sprint and walk and sprint and walk. There's a lot of right ways to do it. People will do that in boxing rounds. I know people do that with battle ropes. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, but high intensity interval training is the good cardio. And one of the effects that it does is it doesn't just burn cardio while you are doing it, but through the interval training method of it, it tends to have that fat burning effect for hours after you're done completing the exercise. So it's a really efficient way to get a really powerful bang for your buck. And it also activates your fast twitch muscle fibers in a different way. If you look at the body composition of marathon runners versus sprinters, sprinters tend to be much more muscular and have a lower body fat, whereas you get marathon folks that they'll end up being skinny because they're just running themselves to the bone, but they're often what's referred to as skinny fat, to where there's not the muscular definition. There's just kind of an overall
Lack of everything.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be disparaging. If you're on here and you're struggling with obesity and your way out of it is you want to run marathons, by all means, please do that. I will support you every step of the way. That's great. But as far as best practice,
26 miles. You'll
I mean, I
carry
will
'em.
stand at the
You
end
heard
of
it here
the
first.
26 miles and like cheer. But yeah, so those are the questions we have lined up this evening. Alan, is there any thoughts you'd like to leave people with tonight?
No, I'm glad that you used the word mindfulness, because that's really a lot of what I think adulting really comes down to is internalizing the idea that you're responsible for yourself. You're responsible for the way you look. You're responsible for the way your wallet looks. You're responsible for the way your children behave. And mindfulness is a good part of that. And that's one of those things that I think practicing the way is mindfulness is a big part of that. We are pious and worship the gods and revere our ancestors, and inside in here we should be mindful, and that will help you with your money. It'll help you with your diet and exercise, and it'll help you with everything else to get you through to be a better person.
Yeah, I think that's solid advice, and it applies to almost anything. And I'll double up on it. In our interaction, I don't know, in life generally, specifically in our ritual, in our gift cycle with the gods, sometimes we're putting in work for the AFA that counts as a gift towards our gods, and that's a really straightforward thing to see. When we're imbuing the horn in bloat with our energy, with our good feelings, the fundamental element in it is intention and your ability to focus intention into what you're doing. And I think that carries on throughout all of the practice of our faith. And the NPC meme is really very relevant to this. There are a lot of people that just kind of float through life and don't give it much thought and don't put a lot into it. In a way, our whole lives, because Asatru is a holistic religion. It's not something you do on Sundays. It's a whole way of living your life. In that sense, our whole life is a very large ritual that is done best and most beneficially when the maximum amount of the things we do are done with very purposeful intention. We see this all the time when we speak to people, when we interact with people. Oftentimes, it truly is the thought that counts. You can tell if what someone's saying is something that's heartfelt, that they put thought into, that they are making the choice to do, or if we're just reflexively going through the motions in life. Life is too short to go through the motions on stuff. Live intentionally, make choices, take ownership of the choices that you make, and I think everything will start becoming better, richer, and more successful. And that's such a big part of what we do. Well, Lawspeaker, thank you so much for joining us. We have a lot of people on the side in comments and stuff throughout the week and throughout responses to your previous episode that are very happy to get a chance to hear more from you and learn from you. So thank you for being with us this evening.
I'm honored to do so. And as I always say, if you have specific questions, or if you have a specific substance that you want to come over and try, you can find me through the Runestone website, and I will be happy to indulge to the best of my ability. I'm here to serve. This is what I live for.
All right, guys. Well, I'm looking forward to talking to y'all next week. I am also excited you are going to join us again next month. Is that correct? For another edition of Adulting with Alan?
Yes, sir.
Fourth Wednesday of the month. That's going to be a regular.
Wednesday.
That is now a regular feature on the program.
Yes, sir.
So until next week, when I talk to you guys, if I don't talk to you before then, hail the ICEER, hail the folk, hail the AFA, and remember, victory never sleeps.